can be attributed to many things, but first and foremost, the pressures we feel to conform to what is dictated as popular by the masses. Ideals which are pushed onto widespread audiences faster than ever cause a deviation from organically developed ideas, opinions, and senses of value and self-worth. Are the beliefs which we adopt formed simply from a fear of standing out? Well, in part, yes. I mean, conformity is nothing new. Who wants to be the odd one out or to look foolish? But these mentalities that we have then cause us to take on these unoriginal beliefs. And though many often argue that without social media, they'd be oblivious to many of the prevalent social and political issues, I'm not calling for an end to this stream of information, which in many cases can be beneficial, but rather to bring to attention what we may call careful consumption. What we look at, listen to, and take in each day plays a role in how we form our identities, especially amongst young people who are in the middle of development. This idea of careful consumption is paired with the purpose of inspiring young people, such as myself, to guide us through life. It is what helps us intellectually, creatively, and emotionally. It is what helps us grow as people. Especially in recent years, we've all had a lot more time on our hands and the looming question of what to do with it. We so often romanticize things like reading and writing, which speak to a time of simplicity, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Take, for example, a blacksmith. He and his wife birth a son who is naturally expected to continue the family's craft. However, this young man soon finds that he doesn't have the passion for blacksmith's work as those before him, and so he decides to leave and pursue a career as an artist. Now, do you think his father was happy to hear that his son didn't want to make horseshoes for the rest of his life? We can assume not. But whether the young man has success as an artist or finds his calling does not so much matter. His path speaks to an example of natural development in a way that was organic. Being fed countless ideas and options causes us to pick and choose what may or may not resonate with us and how we want our lives to be dictated. Eventually, you begin to feel inadequate in your abilities, or you're sitting at a desk working a 9 to 5 doing something you hate, and none of us want to end up there. Now, this young man knew what he was doing wasn't with the intention of pleasing others, and in the face of his family's pressures, he pursued what he loved. So we come to the modern day, a time where each trend passes more quickly than the last, and so our generation almost acts as lab rats. We push back and forth onto each other a new fashionability each week, and then wonder why it's so hard for us to sit down and focus our attention onto something that's meaningful. I mean, I've been wanting to read War and Peace for over a year now, and for some reason I have yet to open the book. I have over 1,000 pages just staring me down on my shelf, and it seems daunting. And honestly, it is. But in the face of all the pressures and distractions I have, especially as a teenager, I found it incredibly helpful to focus on this idea of careful consumption, where I take a minute to look at what I'm doing and the effects that follow. What we take in each day, naturally, plays a role in who we are and how we form our identities, which is why we need to focus our attention onto what we're doing with our time. With so many of us gravitating toward these trends, we often feel like we don't fit in to a box that's so defined. Now, to take this idea of careful consumption is with the purpose of inspiring young people, like I said, like myself, to use this to guide us through life. Now I know we've all heard about the endless complaints about social media, right? And this disconnectedness from the real world through being immersed in these social media platforms is only heightened by additional increase in media usage. The larger problem here is that children are being given access to a vast platform so early on, allowing them to browse anything and everything. And this is not the type of freedom that young minds should be given. Instead, they should be making real connections in the very real world around them, not some fantasy land they've created through a web of online profiles. This idea is paired with the purpose of making ourselves reflect and how we can take time to focus on our true values and our intentions. Now, I'm not saying to cut everyone off from social media as the solution here, but to come back to this idea of careful consumption in which our time is spent meaningfully. When we set aside stimulation from media, we're given time to reflect and focus on what's more important like how we can become secure and content with how we define ourselves. I know it's unrealistic to ask all you teenagers to delete those apps from your phones, and I'm sure we've all seen a lot of people that base their self-value and worth on their media profiles. Without these apps, you may even notice a level of withdrawal where you have nothing to do and no 10-second entertaining video to ease those feelings of anxiety. But in the meantime, before any of us dive into the social media-less deep end, we can begin to do some introspection and find outlets that foster creativity and individuality in an organic way.